Alright, back again. Actually got a little smarter on big makes. I like to cut my videos so I just don't sound like a helicopter. Chop, 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 chopping in and out. So, we did our make, and now it gives us options here. Okay? And the options are, by the way, if you wanted to see the tail of my make there, I'm going to hit screen, escape, and I'm going to use the copy mode, not to copy, but to put my up arrow here so you can see the tail it is. And you should have no errors. Okay, I have no errors. Even though we applied 2 patches that broke, it says that I have no errors, so I'm good to go. That's my output of the make, no errors. Okay, import my copy mode now. Clear. And in the documentation it says if you only want to install the client, do this. And there's another configuration for the server. Okay, I don't really need the server. I'm not really sure what the server does, but I do need the client, and that's okay for me right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to install the client, and to do that it says you have to be sudo root, so sudo su, or su if you didn't install sudo, and it says make c client install. I don't think I'll cut out. Done. Alright, clear. And I want to say move user sbin dh client to sbin. Okay. And I want to install verbose mode 755 client scripts Linux to / sbin dh client script. Okay, good. Alright, and that's all for that section there. And the rest of it goes into if you want to install the server. Alright, you can read about that. I'm not going to do that. And it says here configuring the DH client config file, which I'll talk about in a second. And this is kind of hidden. You actually configure it before you actually do something else. There's still one more thing that we have to do, and often I skip that step and I get errors on that. So let me save you that trouble and just tell you before configuring, skip down. Okay? And there's more here. As the root user, we have to make this directory. So I'm going to say install verbose d for make directories as needed, mode 755 var lib dh client. Okay? Okay, good. Now we're good. At this config directory here, I'm going to de-elevate myself. I'm going to cat out etc dhcp dh client config. I'm going to cat it out in less. At this directory here, this might be because of the patch failed. I'm not sure. Okay. Client identifier. It's a Mac. I'm not sure if this is because of the failed patch. Okay. But a lot of this comes out here. Now it says create the basic DHCP DH client config by running the following. But we have a config here. This generated a config for us, right? But what I have noticed is that this config file doesn't really seem to work properly. Okay, it might be because I don't have IPv6 installed. I'm not sure. So what I did was I looked at my my host machine here, which is Slackware. I looked at that config file, and believe it or not, it was empty. And I looked at my machine on Linux Mint. I looked at that, and it looked similar to the DH client config script that I got, but didn't look like it all the way. Okay, so if I cd into etc dhcp, this DH client config script, I'm just going to copy it. Okay, and I'm going to copy this to DH client config.stub. Okay, permission denied, sudo on. I'm just going to copy this stub, basically. I'm going to copy that to .config.stub. Okay? And so now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say echo a bash sign into DH client config. Okay? So everything, I've catted out, DH client config, everything in there now is gone. Right? And that's basically what was in my Slackware config file. There's a whole bunch of commented out stuff. So it's basically kind of empty. Right? So that's that. And where are we at now? That's all done. So at this point you can test if DH client is behaving as expected. Run the following as root. I did this, and I'm going to say it might be best for you to reboot your machine. Since this is for a test, and for me it works, I'm not going to reboot my machine. But I'm going to show you how to, when you do reboot your machine, I'm going to show you how to connect with it. And it's a little tricky sometimes. Okay? Okay. It says here, if you want to configure an interface using DH client at boot, which I don't want to configure this to do at boot. I don't want it to auto connect to Wi-Fi at boot. Okay? Because I might have my laptop on the run or whatever. And yeah, on the run. I frequently go on the run. Sometimes I just gotta load up, and I've pulled out of my house before at 2 o'clock in the morning. I just disappear for a couple of years. No espionage. But you know, if you're on the move with your laptop, you really don't want it connecting to places, you know, by itself when you turn it on. So I did not install the LFS boot scripts. But you can if that's what you want to do. Okay, so now on to running this thing. Let me pop this out big. We're done with the documentation. Clear. Okay. And I want to go back, de-elevate. And I want to go back to my home directory. Okay. And I have to actually elevate to do this. I'm sorry, de-elevated. Okay. And here we go. First thing you want to do is see if your device is up. Alright, since we're working on a while now, my device is not up. I'm going to bring it up while I know up. ifconfig. It's up. Now what I want to do is, I want to take and I want to say ifconfig while I know. Takes 3 parameters, which in that configure script, this usually for me did not take 3 parameters. The parameters are, first you have to enter in your IP address you want. So you have to kind of know the IP address of which router you're going to go to or whatever like that. No, I guess you don't have to, but I do know it. So I'm going to say 192.168.2.100. That's the one. My router starts dishing out at 2.100. Okay, so I'm going to pick 2.100. Right? The second one is your net mask. Okay, and for everybody, it's just usually 255.255.255.0. Okay, it's kind of a basic. And you want to configure your broadcast address, which is 192.168.2.255. Okay, this is not hard at all. This is your IP of the device that this is the IP you want to obtain. Okay. Your net mask is just going to say, not sure really how to explain net mask, right? But this is common for all devices that if you do this and you're just connecting to a router, you'll just be fine. Okay. Your broadcast address, okay, is actually going to say you're going to broadcast to all addresses in this last octet over here. Okay. Okay. So that's what you want to do. If your router that you're connecting to is not 2, maybe it's a 1.1, okay, you should do that. But you guys know what I'm saying. Mine in this circumstance is a 2.1. Hit enter. Okay. That's done. Now, it would be a good idea to use IYList and scan. Let a scan go through. I'm not sure if that updates anything or anything else like that, but I found out that I've had better results when I did a preliminary scan first before I actually connected anything. So I'm going to do that and let it run out. Okay. Good. Clear. And now I want to say IYconfig Wylino. I have a router that I want to connect to called regional. Okay? But I have to say ESSID. It's regional. And that's just your station ID. Okay? Enter. And IYconfig Wylino. You have to enter in the key information. If your key is no key, if it's open, just hit off. But my key is not open. I have a web key. Now, if you have a WPA key, you cannot use DH client to connect right away. You have to install WPA supplicant first and go through that, create a config file, and then you can use DH client to connect. Okay. But since I have a router that's web capable, I can just enter my password. Password is no quotes. Okay, you get errors of quotes. My password is 8675309. 867. Like the song. Okay? And now you can hit enter. It should be good. Clear that up. Now to connect, we want to say DH client Wylino. Use the V for verbose so you can actually see what's going on. If not, it'll just run and you won't really be able to see what's going on. Now let's see what happens. Sometimes it takes just a little bit. But if you see this dipping into more than say four discovers, you should kind of stop it and turn around, because sometimes it's not that, it just goes on forever, and it is more than 4. Okay, so I'm gonna skip that. Now it's a good idea to say you want to kill all 9 DH client. So now to kill on it for both. Okay, you can stop it. Now let me say IFconfig Wylino. Have to go back to it again. 92.168.2.100 net mask equals 255.255.255.0, and my broadcast is going to equal 192.168.2.255. Okay. Do you have to hit all that when you enter it in? I found better results when I did that. Okay. But normally on other operating systems, I haven't had to add all that in. Maybe it's a config file. Maybe it is the config file that we're using. I'm not sure. Okay. But for right now, this is what I have to do. I put this all in a little script and I'll never see it. Let's say I let this scan. Okay, clear. Now let's say iwconfig Lino ESSID regional. Okay, and the key is 8675309-867. Enter. Now I want to DH client Lino verbose. Let's see. Okay, these offer from. Come on, go, 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 go. I'm watching my router blink. Give me some good news, man. There we go. Okay, so you should get some type of output like this. Okay, bound to. Okay, clear. Now let's ping it and see if we make it or not. Now you could ping Google, okay, but I'm not going to ping Google because I don't have any connectivity on it. Okay, but I'm going to ping my router's IP. My router's IP is not 100, but it's 2.1. Okay, ping 3 times, and that's what you should get back. Okay, you should get 3 received. Now, sometimes you might connect, sometimes you might not connect. Okay, that could be a configuration issue. I'm not sure, but sometimes I noticed that happened. I went by the book. I installed everything according to the text, and even with patches that succeeded and patches that did not succeed, I've noticed that there's a little extra information that you have to add to this, which is unusual with DH client. I've been using DH client for a very long time, and you're probably using DH client, don't even know it if you're a new user or something like that. You know, a lot of times DH client starts up on boot on a lot of operating systems. Okay, network manager relies on DH client and all this other stuff. I'm pretty sure that's the case. I know in Mint it does. Alright, but we all use DH client to connect. And there's some extra information in here that I've had to enter that is a little different than usually with my DH client scripts. And that could be a config file, like I said, but I'm not sure. But like I said, it's a good idea to scan, okay? And I'm not sure if that updates anything or just gets it in the or that does anything, but I have noticed that if you do not hit all this in, you'll have to do this multiple times. Okay, and these aren't hard at all. A lot of people make routing sound to be some kind of crazy pseudo art or something, and, you know, you can only learn it if you're a half alchemist in some dungeon or basement, but it's not the case. This is just your IP you wish to select. Okay. If you have static IPs, it's even better. I have DHCP running on my router, so it doesn't matter what IP I'll punch in, it'll just dish out whatever it wants to give me. Your net mask, once again, I'm not sure what that is, but if you're a local router, if you're only connected from wireless to your router, that this is good enough. If you're going from router to router, these numbers might differ, okay? But since I'm not going extravagance, that's the case. Your broadcast ID is just what you want to broadcast to, which 192.168.2.1 is my router, but the last octet or the last clump of 4 is I did not want to go into a routing tutorial. IPs and domains and subnets and shit. But if you select this for your laptop to a router, you're good to go. And this is broadcast to every address. 255 is all the addresses in that last octet. Okay? So, for example, you cannot do 256 at the end. Okay? That can't happen. 255 is all the addresses in that net. 0 is no addresses in that net, so you won't be broadcasting to anything. And if you hit 192.168.2.0, O's no address, so it's 192.168.no address. Okay, you won't be broadcasting to anything. Okay, whereas if you broadcast to 1, that IP is already taken up by the. Okay, there you go. I probably just confused the hell out of you. But that's all I got. Next would be to install WPA supplicant if you have it. And it would be a good idea to do that. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that. I'm not sure when. Probably pretty soon. But WPA supplicant is the next one. And this is important because this takes WPA keys. Okay. Wired equivalent protection. That's what WebKey stands for. They phased it out a couple years ago because WPA was a more secure protocol to authenticate to your router. Okay. You can pop your router down to a WEP key, right? As far as vulnerabilities go, they say it's less vulnerable, but really, I mean, not everybody in the world's a hacker. You might have a couple hackers on your block. Maybe you don't have any hackers on your block. But if you just secure your network with, say, MAC authentication or something else like that, you can even leave your router open. If they don't have the right MAC address, well, I don't know if they spoof you, that's a different thing too, but, you know. But WPA supplicant is the next step. It takes WPA keys, so you don't need to drop down your router, okay? And to install that, there's a couple things here, libnl and OpenSSL, which I have to install, okay? And you need to have, hey, check that out. Is that our missing drivers? Sure enough. I think those are the missing drivers I had to install in the previous tutorial, which gave me my ProcNet wireless and wireless LAN. I don't know if I have that installed or not. I have to check. But you have to install libnl and OpenSSL. It's also a good idea to have ls list PCI, okay, from PCI Utils, okay. So it's a little bit of dependencies going on here. So before I actually install that, I'll be doing some preliminary on how to work up to that. 22 minutes, man. I'll be doing a little bit of preliminary on how to work up to installing this. And WPA supplicant, you need to, when you're connected to a WPA router, you need to actually create a config file. And then you read off the config file, or it reads off, DH client will read off of a config file and connect to a WPA2 key that way. Okay? If it sounds a little bit too much, like you really can't understand what I'm saying, just think about it for a minute. WPA or DH client you can use for open and web routers. When you get into WPA keys, WPA2 keys, you need WPA supplicant to generate a passphrase, or pretty much encrypt it, okay? And then you use that encrypted file, you use DH client to read that encrypted file, which will connect you, okay? So, it's not that hard. Not that hard. Network utilities. When we get into stuff like a YCD, I'm not going to install that. Network Manager, I'm really not going to install that. I might even do a separate tutorial on that dependency hell of that. That's insane. That is insane. Matter of fact, we'll just look at it real quick. Look at all this stuff required for Network Manager. On a lot of out-of-the-box OSs, oh my god, like you don't even know how much is going on. Network managers are used on a lot of out-of-the-box networks, or out-of-the-box OSs. But look at all these dependencies that we have here. glib's binding. And you say, okay, this is cool. But when you click on this, this opens up to more dependencies. So there's 3 more inside of here. So it's just an onion. I mean, there's just so many dependencies. And I think I actually got... I was going to do something else, but let me show you. You can actually, from within your OS now, you have DHClient installed. Let's clean it up. And I'm going to remove my extracted directory, DHCP 424P2. See this book? I think I had it in here. It was in my news sources, I think. No. I'm sorry. I wanted to show you a little list I made of the things I would have to install. I can't find it. Yeah, I can't find it. I had it. You know what? I might have erased it when I cloned over my OS. I'm not sure. But I had a little list, and it was full of dependencies. I mean, Jesus, it was all day long. I had like hunt for dependencies, and it was literally dependency hell. Okay, to get Network Manager installed, and that's for auto connecting and everything else like that. So I'm probably not going to install Network Manager. YCD wasn't so bad, but Network Manager was just a nightmare. Just looking at it, I didn't even install it. I mean, just looking at it, so many libs that you had to install, so many packages. But there you go. So that's DHClient. Hope you guys like this tutorial, and I'm gonna cut this video. So have a great day.